When humanity finally left its cradle on the third planet of the Sol sector, it began to stretch out to each of the stars. This was nothing new. All sentient species did this, typically colonizing the nearest planets they could survive on. What surprised everyone was the unique method humans employed for colonization. Humans used large ships, heavily armed with all sorts of weaponry, to venture to new planets. Once they reached a planet, they would land these massive ships, fully aware that they could never take off again. This was peculiar. As we observed, the humans began to build great cities using these ships. The ships would open up vents and perform various processes to terraform the planet, turning it into an M-class planet, which was more than suitable for human life, and even for other species. Humans preferred this method, regardless of how unforgiving the atmosphere of a planet was. In some cases, there wasn't even an atmosphere, yet they still colonized the planet, using their suits and these massive warships as bases of operation. This method puzzled and intrigued us. We didn't understand why the humans needed such large, heavily armed vessels, or why they landed them instead of releasing shuttles to colonize more broadly. So we watched. We watched humans spread out with these ships to each of their sector's planets and satellites. When they were done, they reached beyond their sector, colonizing at least one planet and 2 satellites in every direction. It was around this time that the galactic community at large formally introduced themselves to the humans. We learned that some species had made covert deals with the humans, possibly violating galactic law. This initially explained why humans had expanded so rapidly. Once they achieved spaceflight and started mining minerals from their asteroid belt, the production of these massive ships increased tenfold. It took them just one of their years, a solar rotation around their sun, to build one ship. Autonomous robots would mine the asteroid field, break down chunks into smaller pieces, and bring them back to large space stations where they were smelted and formed into materials needed for construction. The drones would then build the ships next to the space station. Eventually, they moved some stations closer to the asteroid belt, accelerating production even further. Each ship was more than a mere colonization vessel. They were equipped with powerful weapons, including direct fire weapons, numerous point defense weapons, and ports for either missiles, torpedoes, or escape pods. It was difficult for us to discern which. It wasn't until the humans reached the edge of the borders we allowed them to that we took a formal stance. According to galactic standards, each species is permitted to expand one sector beyond their home before any restrictions are imposed. We informed the humans that they must cease their colonization efforts on these uninhabited worlds. However, the humans did not heed our warning and countered by saying that since we did not colonize the planet first, it was free for them to claim. We cautioned them that this action was against our laws. The humans retorted that it was not against theirs, asserting that they were there first. They argued that if we had wanted the planet so badly, we should have colonized it ourselves. When we explained that we intended to colonize the planet, despite it taking roughly 10,000 of their years to do so, the humans confidently responded that in 10,000 years, their population would be well established. This situation was unacceptable to us, as encroaching on another's territory is tantamount to an unofficial declaration of hostilities. Consequently, the first central species to engage the humans resolved to reclaim this single colony. Upon arriving at the planet, the Arachne demanded that the humans vacate immediately, giving them no choice. The humans responded defiantly, stating, "We do not negotiate with terrorists." The Arachne reiterated that they were not negotiating. The humans had 24 hours to leave or face death. At this point, a human warship, which we had initially assumed was a base of operations, reignited its engines and lifted off the planet. The Arachne were astonished at how such a massive vessel could lift off so effortlessly. As the ship ascended, it scorched the planet's surface, nearly destroying all structures in the vicinity. Once the ship reached orbit, the Arachne ships opened fire, but their attacks barely scratched the human vessel. The human warship retaliated with a barrage of weapons, launching metal projectiles at near-light speeds and deploying missiles and torpedoes. Even the point defense systems engaged the Irani ships. Despite their best efforts, The Arachne's main weapons had negligible impact on the human ship, which continued its ascent undeterred. Once free of the planet's gravity, the human ship turned, and its central weapon began charging. The Arachne flagship's captain trembled in fear as the human vessel fired a massive bolt of energy, slicing through the Arachne fleet. The ship's front glowed as the gigantic laser powered down, but its other weapons continued firing relentlessly. The human ship's fusion drives propelled it straight towards the remaining Arachne ships, which charged in desperation, firing all their weapons. However, their projectiles merely reflected off the human ship's hull, some ricocheting back towards the planet. The humans appeared to target any shots that threatened the planet below. Realizing they were hopelessly outgunned, the Arachne ships retreated. The humans, however, did not relent and continued firing until the Arachne ships activated their jump drives and escaped. The Arachne relayed their encounter to the Galactic community, who were skeptical until they saw footage of the single human battleship decimating an entire Arachne battle group, sparing only about 5% of the fleet. Those who survived often retired in shame, unwilling to face human ships again. Recognizing the dire threat posed by the humans, the Galactic community decided to send a message by ambushing one of these formidable ships, aiming to demonstrate their capability to neutralize such a threat and deter the humans from expanding further. A single ship was chosen for this mission, which took months to plan. To complete their plan, they needed to identify a ship that would be patrolling alone, far enough from other human ships to prevent immediate assistance. After some analysis, they selected a target. Upon arrival, the name ESF Poltova was clearly visible on the ship's hull. As they jumped into the vicinity of the Poltova, it immediately activated its weapon systems. Most of the fleet had not even fully transitioned into normal space when the Poltova began its assault, firing without warning or hesitation. Soon, space was filled with projectiles flying between the Poltova and the enemy fleet. Many of the sentient species engaged their energy shields, assuming they could deflect the incoming human rounds. They overlooked Newton's third law: for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The force of the human rounds striking their shields rocked their ships violently in the opposite direction. Although there were variations due to mass, the effect was devastating. Crew members were crushed against bulkheads and splattered against consoles. Ships hit on the ventral side saw their captains and crew suffer crushed spines due to the immense pressure. Despite this brutal counterattack, the enemy force persisted. When they fired their main guns at the Poltova, the ship performed an unexpected maneuver. It rolled continuously while firing its weapons. This tactic allowed the weapons to cool down between volleys. Whenever it rolled out of sight of the enemy fleet, the Poltova would cease fire, allowing for repairs or rearming, then roll back into view to resume its attack. The enemy fleet concentrated their fire on the ship's external cells, mistaking them for escape pods. They soon realized these cells were, in fact, missile and torpedo launchers. Despite their efforts to intercept the incoming ordnance, they found the missiles and torpedoes to be heavily armored against point defense systems. These projectiles penetrated deep into their ships before detonating, causing catastrophic secondary and tertiary explosions that set the ship's interiors ablaze, leading to immediate disabling or destruction. Initially numbering over 400 ships, the enemy fleet was drastically reduced. As the last 20 ships retreated, the surviving commander broadcast a desperate message. "What the hell does it take to kill this thing?" The humans intercepted this transmission and laughed. Subsequently, humans sent envoys to announce their intention to limit their expansion, claiming a few additional planets and sectors, but no more. This declaration puzzled the interstellar community, especially given the formidable nature of human warships like the Poltova. The Poltova, though not unscathed, had survived an overwhelming onslaught, leaving the community questioning why humans built such powerful battleships. When asked, the human ambassador replied with a proverb, "Better to have and not need than to need and not have." He added, "Considering how you folks say hello, I'm just glad we had them."